Why did you do it?" The question was so dryly put and unemotional. It was a simple string of words. But I didn't think there was any simple answer. I shrugged. I don't like myself. The tall man flipped through some papers on a clipboard and then asked, "Did that start before or after the accident?" I suppressed an eye roll. "Well, Doc, the easiest response would be the accident, although I can't say I was a great human being before that. But really, it started when I realized I could see how people die." "The accident," I answered, knowing that if I told him the truth, I'd end up locked away for a very long time. He continued reviewing the paperwork that detailed what the accident had medically caused and how I had been treated. I tried my best not to look at him. I didn't want to look at anyone anymore. I knew he was dressed in a crisp white coat with a blue button-up and black slacks. I knew he had short sandy blonde hair and dark eyes. I knew what he was supposed to look like. But that's not what I saw. What I saw was a gaping knife wound in the side of his neck, blood-soaked clothes, a torn shirt from another stab wound in his abdomen. I saw dirt and tiny pebbles stuck in the side of his face from falling onto the ground. I saw pale, dead skin and smelled steak and bourbon. The smells were usually worse, but this time it was the least bearable enough that I didn't gag. "Okay, well, Clarissa, I'm going to send you for a psych evaluation and some blood work to start in the morning. I'd expect you to be here at least the mandatory 72 hours, just like any other person who would attempt suicide. Hopefully we can figure out why you feel this way, if the accident somehow caused it, and get you all fixed up and on your way soon. For now, just try to rest." I nodded and laid back against the pillow. The doctor put the chart back in its place and walked back out the door. I glanced at the girl in the bed next to mine. She seemed engrossed in some TV show about a detective or something. I rolled over to my side, facing away from her, closed my eyes and let myself drift off to sleep, aided by the painkillers in my system. When I awoke, it was completely dark in the room, and my bed felt alien to me. I looked around at the bland surroundings and remembered that I was in the hospital. Something seemed off, though. There was a smell. I sprung into a sitting position quickly when I realized I was smelling smoke. I couldn't hear any alarms going off or any chaos in the hall, so I was left confused and a little terrified. I pushed myself out of the bed and walked to the closed door, peeking through the window and seeing nothing amiss. But it smells like there's a fire. How can no one else notice that? I thought. A sense of panic gripping my chest. I took a few deep breaths and moved into the bathroom, shutting the door behind me. When the small room became bathed in fluorescent light, I saw my reflection. A pale, thin girl that desperately needed to eat and sleep, and stop seeing dead things. It clicked then, that I was probably smelling the fire from someone's death. Maybe someone had been admitted in the next room, or there was a nurse that was destined to die in some sort of blaze. This thought helped to calm me a bit. I used the toilet, washed my hands, and splashed water on my face before exiting the bathroom and climbing back into my small, white, impersonal hospital bed. I don't hate hospitals, really, but I hated how vanilla they were. There was almost never any color or character. I sat in the bed, absent-mindedly staring towards the window, which was on the wall closest to the other patient, when I realized she was sound asleep, half curled up on her side, facing me. She looked normal. From the little light shining through the window of the door on my side of the room, and the light shining from the parking lot shining through the window on her side of the room, I could see that other than some bruises and scratches on her arms and cheek, she didn't look dead. She looked alive. She looked like she was supposed to, but why? There was movement in my peripheral, and I felt my breath involuntarily catch in my lungs. I followed the movement to look under her bed. On her back lay a girl, almost identical to the one in the bed. She was reaching up and running her fingers over the bottom of the bed. Her arms were darkened and dirty. Her hair was splayed around her head and looked singed. Suddenly, she slammed her hands, palms down on the floor, on each side of her, and snapped her head to look at me. I realized where the smoke smell had come from now. Half of her face was covered in blackened, crispy skin that looked like it was falling or peeling away from the bone. I saw that she had the pale skin of a corpse where it wasn't covered in dirt or charred beyond recognition. I choked and gagged on the sudden wave of burnt flesh and hair that assaulted my nose and throat. She stared at me, both of us frozen for at least a minute. Then she slowly raised a finger to her lips and whispered, "Shh." I felt myself barely nod. The burned girl pulled herself slowly from under the bed on the opposite side of me. I watched as her dead legs bent and shuddered while she positioned herself to stand. Once she was standing, still doubled over at the waist, I moved my gaze from below the bed to above it, where she was standing next to her living twin. There were barely audible pops and a slight wheezing as she fully righted herself. She gently placed a hand, burned with sections of white bone showing, on the shoulder of the sleeping girl. She looked at the girl with what I can only describe as love and compassion, as if she cared deeply for her. I saw her grip tighten around the girl's shoulder, and her black nails dig into the fabric of her hospital gown. Those dead eyes flashed up at me once again, and a wide, malicious smile spread across her twisted face. The half that was destroyed gave a slight ripping noise as the corner of her mouth tore open to make her smile even wider. In one quick motion, she reached over, yanked the girl's jaw open, and crawled on top of her. The broken, blistered, and scorched body contorted with awful tears, pops, and cracks as it forced itself into the girl's mouth and down her throat. I watched in horror, unable to move, to scream, or to breathe. Right before the sleeping girl's mouth closed, I saw something bright in her throat. The dead girl's eye looking out at me. And, once again, I heard, "Shh." This is another fantastic story, brought to me by Boe Whiskey. I'm going to leave a link to her in the description below. Make sure you check her out.